This is the ATI Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the ATI Podcast. Barrett here. We got Josh back in the Pound Palace, the ATI Podcast studio. How you doing, Josh?
Pretty good. I'm about to get real hard in this hard saddle and whip this pony into shape and get back at it, baby.
Yep, we got to get hard for what we have laid out here tonight, and that is one hardcore band from St. Louis.
Yeah.
A more traditional style hardcore band, which I'm really excited to talk to. These are guys that have been around in the scene for, I guess they're going to be approaching 19 years, I think, as of next year, or real close to it, or 18.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. And you played with these guys,
right?
Yeah,
I played with these guys way back when. I know at least on one, if not two different shows, and I think they were both at Cicero's. I know the one that I know of for sure. We played the last home reunion show with these guys. They played there.
That's awesome.
So that was a pretty good time.
What an epic show, you know.
Oh, yeah. And I believe we may have played a Halloween show with them at Cicero's as well. I dressed like Marty McFly, and everybody thought I was like a preppy guy. They didn't realize I was like in a costume.
Like a 2006 Abercrombie guy.
I was wearing like a fucking like American Eagle like plaid Western shirt, but I had like my big puffy blue vest on over it, which looked like Marty McFly.
Yeah, I would have got it.
And I wore my like grandpa sneakers and some jeans. And like rolled them up, and the jeans were like the knees were worn out.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of obvious, and I did my hair a little bit like, you know.
Yeah.
And I was kind of twitching around like Michael J. Fox, you know.
Getting jiggy with it.
Yeah, exactly. So nobody got it. They just thought I was some preppy asshole, and
they're like, "Who's this douchebag?"
I got sideways looks all night, and nobody cared to talk to me. So anyways, we're here tonight, and I'm going to get my vengeance on the Disappeared apparently for this. But we're really excited to be talking to the Disappeared. If nothing else, hopefully it'll come across the audio waves today, and then it's just to at least, you know, pay homage to somebody that's like, you know, really been hard at it, beating the pavement this long, and, you know, it's unusual to have that longevity, particularly in the Midwest, and I know they have a good name about them, and so I know they're trying to ramp back up here, and then they've got several singles and projects I think that they're going to be revealing tonight that is in the works. And I know that they got a show here in the next week, too, and they're playing with a former guest of ATI Podcast. It's Wes Hoffman, so
very nice.
Be doing a little local show promotion for St. Louis. So.
Yeah, that'd be a good show.
Yeah.
If you guys need a really nice show to get out and see, go check out that. That'd be great, because Wes is awesome, and these guys are awesome.
Yeah. What I really think that the Disappeared is great at, and we'll get into that with them, too, but, you know, before them getting here, is I think they are like one of the best live bands in our area to actually see. Not only do they perform, you know, their performances are on par, you know, what you hear recorded, they're able to reproduce that live, but physically, you know, they engage with the crowd. And,
high energy.
You know, very high energy.
That's cool.
They're maintaining, they don't miss a note.
Yeah.
And this is like some fast, like, you know, punk hardcore stuff. Yeah. You got to have some cardio for that shit, man.
It makes the show more memorable, in my opinion.
I agree.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, you remember how crazy that fucking show was? Like, that's the shit that I love at shows.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's awesome. They're doing that.
And I think that bands that bring that type of energy, like even if it's not your normal genre that you like, you're going to give more time and attention to or be more patient with it because they are engaging you and they are, you know.
Right.
Taking, you know, center stage with your attention. So, but yeah, I think these guys are like one of the funnest bands to see in St. Louis. And you're really doing yourself a disservice if you've never seen the Disappeared live. So, but we'll go on more about that once we get these guys back on the show. We're kind of doing a traditional format for the show here. Things have been crazy the last several weeks with everything that we've had going on. We went hardcore in October again.
Yeah,
probably overcommitted ourselves again, just like we usually do.
I mean, you and Ridge and all of the boys have been way more busier than me. I've had to miss out on some stuff, but it looks like it was a blast, though. It looks like you guys had a lot of fun, so I'm going to be diving into that stuff since I missed it.
So if you guys don't know this and you're still catching up, or maybe you've never listened to the show before, we dedicated October this year but we do every year, to spooky season, of course, and try to do things a little bit more spooky on here. So this year, we dedicated October specifically to iconic horror anniversaries. And so we had a 50 year of The Exorcist, which was a watch-along style, and I'm not really doing these in order, but we had Videodrome for its 40th anniversary. So 1983 that came out, David Cronenberg film. And starring James Woods and Debbie Harry. Then for the 30-year anniversary, we had Chronos from Guillermo del Toro, his first feature.
Yep.
20-year, we had House of a Thousand Corpses. And then we, for the 10-year, did The Evil Dead 2013.
Right, yeah. And you know what? Some of those were a first for me, so it was
Yeah.
great, and like I learned so much about some of the films that I had seen that I didn't know too. So it was great, man. I loved that. I think the audience really will enjoy it once they get through all of it.
But just to elaborate on some of that a little bit more, in case, you want to tackle that, we do have a playlist specifically for our horror theme month. So you can just check out that playlist specifically on YouTube. I will say that, in recent months, Josh, I'm sure you would agree that I think the more full experience for us now, our podcast is actually through YouTube. A lot more stuff with the video production and elements infused in that, clips, and that sort of stuff, and throwing up stuff on the screen that we're referencing.
Right.
And that sort of stuff in post. So, and then you're going to not only see that just here on the main mothership ATI podcast, but you're seeing that on Waxing On with RJ, the physical media curation and local show promotion show, and then Ed Oz in with Brandon Stewart. Nard's Closet is his show, of course. The leaning into the D&D world and the minis and 40K Warhammer and RPG games and all that stuff. So we're doing a lot more cool stuff with the video. Everybody's got their own playlists on YouTube. We're not telling you don't listen to us if you don't watch us or on YouTube either. And of course the convenient audio versions. I know, like, I drive along a lot for work. Usually I listen to most of my podcasts like that. So, you got to have those audio options out there too. So I'm not saying you don't get the full effect. But for what we did back in October to circle us back around was a lot of video elements and referring to media and, films.
Right.
So you kind of have to have that when you're having those discussions.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, you could have a reference to know what people know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
And so I think like one of our more ambitious episodes that we've done to date, the last one, was the Exorcist watch-along. So I think we've technically had a watch-along on here before. Brandon and I, for the first Dom Nard's Closet, did a pro wrestling match watch-along.
Which you guys watched.
Which is pretty funny.
One of the most fucked up matches.
Yeah. It's pretty funny. If you've never seen a watch-along before, basically the concept is that we as the hosts sit down and commentate on what you're seeing. And we can take multiple avenues with that. We can go satirical with it. We can basically, do some improv comedy.
Yeah.
We can do some literal commentation. We can provide some facts with scenes that you're seeing on the screen from our research that we've picked up on, or things that we've watched over the years, or maybe make those allusions to other work, or point out the cinematic devices that are being used on screen. So it's just a lot of layers to this. So you're going to experience that if you actually do our Exorcist watch along.
And there's a cocktail bonus.
There is a cocktail bonus. So we came up with our own cocktail called the Bitter End.
Keep that in mind.
So you guys got to check that out. Now, it is on the audio version, but again, the video's where you're going to want to see that. We give the ingredients and everything, what we were using for that cocktail, the Bitter End, that is. And there is some liquor in there that's going to put some hair on some chests, regardless of. So yeah, it was a disgusting.
It's stout
liquor. Yeah, and it is bitter, but once you mix it into a mixed drink, it was actually pretty pleasant and a nice surprise for me. So I'm always down to try a new cocktail.
Yeah, dude.
I like my alcohol, so nothing wrong with that. So we got a new little drink for you guys to pair with the film. Joey and I, Rackavan, of course, been on the show before, friend of the show. We do kind of news and notes before we watch The Exorcist, kind of spoiler-free stuff. Some analytics, what was going on in the cinematic universe at the time, touching on that, just kind of set the stage for it. Then we count you in to watch along with us from the WB screen on the title. And it is the director's cut that we did for that episode. So there is a difference when you watch The Exorcist.
Yeah,
there's some things that are not in the original theatric.
I don't think I've seen the director's cut, so that's interesting.
If you've seen the crab walk and you've seen the demonic subliminal faces flash up on the screen, you've seen the director's cut.
I think I've seen those like in clips later on.
Sure.
I don't think I've seen it in the original one that I watched.
Yeah, so the more shocking one, of course, in the original director's vision, as well as the author of the books and who wrote the script for the movie. Blatty is the director's cut, so I wouldn't even waste your time with the theatrical cut nowadays. They released that in 1990, and that's the one that's prominently sold, but every version of it sells both, like it's 2 in 1. You know? Like every Blu-ray releases both versions of the movie. We sit down, we watch that movie, we count you in from 3, and from start to finish, we start filling you in on what's happening on the screen, foretelling devices, things to look for. Again, just allegories that you'll see, and we'll point out, you know, when you start seeing, it's just real, there's just real subtleties that the film just builds upon constantly until the final act. So I think that...
and what a better film for our podcast because of the localness of it. Like, you know what I mean? The story of it and how it ties into our area and stuff. So, yeah, great movie choice. I'm excited to watch that shit.
And if you guys don't know the local tie-in, of course, and this is just a real dumbed-down, simplified version of it, but a boy from Maryland had to use an alias because he was a minor, gets this affliction, and he is sent to a Jesuit mental hospital.
But it's like isn't it religious? Like it's a Catholic.
Jesuit.
Yeah.
So he gets sent to St. Louis, and it's still like even up to 2023 has wings of this institution are still active.
Yeah.
Present day.
That's wild, dude.
So this is where they performed the exorcism on this person, and the movie isn't set there. It's set in Georgetown in D.C.
Right.
On the East Coast, and this kid's originally from Maryland, so it's technically closer to home.
Right.
They really just used Georgetown as the basis because it's a Jesuit college, and William Peter Blatty, the author of the book and the writer of the script, went to school there.
Nice.
So he knew all about this thing happening. You know, it was local lore and newsworthy while he was going to Georgetown, and he actually tried to get his hands on the original diaries.
Oh, shit.
To adapt that, and he couldn't get his hands on it until years later, finally, and it was released to the public, but he actually wanted to tell the story from that perspective, so he had to go a more fictitious route with the story.
Right.
But it's all based on that.
Yeah. It's wild, man.
That real account. So very, very cool movie, you know, probably in the conversation for my favorite movie of all time.
It's definitely one of the greatest horror films of all time.
To me, it's a gateway drug film.
Right.
It's a film that pushes the boundaries of what society deems acceptable, at least American culture in particular, or we'll say like Christian-led nations.
Right. That's where I like where it touches into that. Yeah.
It's very controversial in that regard, and as you start to watch more and more controversial films, especially if you're a cinephile, you start to see things in movies that you can understand why there's controversy behind it, but also at the same time, perhaps you're not like religious in that way.
Right.
So it kind of like, you can kind of have that attitude of, well, this really isn't that bad. What's the next bad thing that somebody, you know, stigma that surrounds a film?
Right.
You know, I kind of liken it to like the first time I smoked a joint. I was like, I heard all these terrible things about like, oh, it's so bad for you, and you're gonna go crazy, you're gonna jump out a window, and it's just like kind of the reefer madness bullshit that you heard.
I was so disappointed. Not to like get on a side tangent, but the first time I smoked weed, I was like so disappointed.
I was so happy.
Like the second or third time is when I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I probably enjoyed it to its full effect, but you know, like the first time I smoked it, like I think I told you, I was like, this is it.
Yeah.
This isn't that bad.
Yeah, that's exactly
and everybody was just kind of like laughing at me, and I'm like, this is great. This is great.
Yeah. Zaza.
The first time I got freaking like drunk, I felt way worse. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
it's
it's night and day with
the fact that, you know, that liquor is so socially acceptable, but smoking a little grass isn't. I mean, that's just unreal. But that's, you know, you guys have heard our opinions on that. But
yeah, sorry.
I was just using that example back to the film thing, right? So, you know, you're going to probably have heard things about films in your life that like controversial, taboo, don't watch it, don't do this. Watch a movie, form your own opinions. Listen to something new music wise.
I was going to say that goes for anything. You know? Stop relying on other people to tell you how to live your life. Form your own opinion and do your own take and live your life.
Even if there's somebody that has a lot of commonalities with you that you agree with most of the time, you're going to diverge paths at some point, you know? You're going to have some
two people
maybe left of center and they go right of center on something. It's just
life.
There's just so many possibilities, right? We're our own individuals with our own individual interests and tastes. So, but we just wanted to kind of give further explanation on kind of how to do the Exorcist thing. If you don't want to do the watch along, you can still watch it though, obviously, or listen to it. And obviously watching a watch along on YouTube doesn't really work out. We don't have rights to the film, so we can't broadcast it and put our audio over it.
Right.
So how that's going to work is really it's best for you to use your phone to sit down and then watch the movie, have that on, maybe have subtitles on the TV, low volume, so you can kind of engage in everything and not lose where you're at. And we do give timestamps periodically while we're watching it, so that if for whatever reason you had to pause or we had to pause for a second and things got thrown off, we can sync back up too. So everybody can keep pace with each other while you're watching it too.
Very nicely done. Good job, boys.
We do a recap at the end. So again, if you don't want to do the watch along thing, you want everything around it, we got it all for you. We got timestamps on stuff out there now, so you can jump around to those minute markers if that works for you too. So we're just trying to be reasonable and digestible for everybody, depending on what your circumstances, because we understand life's busy and you got to pick your spots sometimes, right?
Absolutely, yeah. You got to make time for everything. So, and life is very busy. So.
Right. So this week, we, of course, as we mentioned in the open, we're going to have The Disappeared. So we're just going to get right to it, guys, with The Disappeared. We are here for episode 96 for our guest spotlight segment live here on Twitch, and we've got Brad from The Disappeared. How you doing, Brad?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing great, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Appreciate you doing the show. And, we were kind of talking a little bit before we started recording. This is a real treat for us because The Disappeared is a band for sure that we wanted to kind of pay homage to, because you guys have been putting a lot of skin in the game the last nearly 20 years.
Yeah. We were talking before we came on. We're at the point where we say almost 20 years now. It's been, I guess, if I'm doing the math right, 2006 is when we, I guess, officially started as a full band. But I mean,
sure.
me and Dan kind of started the project in 2005, like right after our old band broke up. So it's been going for a while.
Yeah, and one thing that, I always enjoyed about you guys, so like just my first memories of you guys playing, you guys have probably been a band at least for like a year or two at that point. I think some of my old bands may have played some shows with you and stuff, but what stood out to me was like your guys' stage presence, your performance. Like you guys hit all the notes live, but you still like the energy that you bring, like you're in the crowd, you're engaging with the crowd, right. You guys are engaging with each other on stage. Like that is just, to me, that is the musician's musician.
Absolutely.
Right there. So that always stood out to me about you guys.
That's always been super important to us, especially like me personally. I've always kind of had that, not like, I feel like I'm not as good of a musician as other people because I am just like the singer. So I always felt like it was my duty to like go above and beyond. Sure. Just standing up there and singing. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I have kind of slowed my pace down a little bit. The older I've gotten, I don't exactly jump up and down and jump off of things like I used to back in the day. But, that's like, I want people in the crowd to feel it. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's bands that I like, I go see, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's great. They're good, but I didn't feel anything. So for us to have people feel it, like we want people to feel it. You know what I mean? That's music. Absolutely. To me is also like feel and not just the tune. So, if I can get somebody to get like goosebumps on their arms or something during a set, that's what we're trying to do.
I mean, how do you expect people to be passionate about what you're doing unless you are passionate about
it? Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, and that's just something that really stood out to me about you guys. I mean, and it can obviously starkly stand out depending on like what bill you're on and like the other artists that you're playing with too.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Is that something that you kind of picked up in your previous band experiences over time? You just knew that was something that would kind of make you an X factor, or?
Yeah, I think so. Me and Dan were in a band previous to Disappeared called the Picture Book of Saints. So me and Dan have been playing together for over 25 years. It's been a long, long time. But back then, when we were I guess we started the band when we were late teens and into our like early 20s. I mean, we were party animals, and we just got up there like no holds barred, and I did, at least. I was constantly, like Dan will tell you, I was constantly kicking his chords out of his pedal board because like I was just all over the place, like almost to a fault. But like a lot of the bands that I came up with, like watching the lead man or the front man or whatever, like HR from Bad Brains, and listen to some of the like late 90s hardcore bands, like the singers just would go absolutely nuts, and like I loved that. And that's kind of a way for me to like burn off my energy too, is just kind of lose myself in the set. So yeah, that's that was always important to us. I may not be able to do it as well anymore because my heels hurt and my knees hurt all the time. I've got bone spurs, so I can't exactly. I save like one good jump per set. I have to like time it out because I'm like,
pace yourself, man.
This is gonna hurt tomorrow, so I can't be doing this crazy stuff anymore. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, you've got some posters there in the background of lead men that do stuff like that, like Converge, for example. Brad Jacob Bannon. That's the man right there.
Yep.
That's my guy for sure.
That is a present I gave to my wife, like the first or second year we started dating.
Nice.
Yeah, Jacob was a huge influence. Like Converge I don't necessarily like listen to them all the time anymore, but just their entire aesthetic and like their live show, and like Jacob just like losing himself in the music is definitely a huge influence on the way I play music.
They've very much got that DIY attitude too, their own label and when they promote other artists. And
like, I mean, it's funny like you bring that up because like he literally like I kind of like tried to pattern like what I do after him, because he is like a one-man deal. Like he does all the artwork, he runs the label, he's like the artistic like vision behind the entire band, and that's kind of, I guess, me filling in for like not playing an instrument. Is like I try to make sure I do all the artwork. I get band promoter, manager, photographer, artist, social media guy. I just like because in that way I can keep the aesthetic kind of cohesive, as opposed to like always subbing stuff out and just kind of having like a not as cohesive of a vibe to our band. So yeah, Jacob is he's a bad mofo.
Yeah, it's a good guy to be taking notes from for sure.
Yeah.
Now, something I remember happening very early on for you guys too, I believe it was AP Magazine recognized you guys as like one of 100 bands to know just in the first few years of you being a band, right?
Yeah, that was actually, I mean, say what you want about that magazine and kind of how it ended up in its later years, but like in my kind of late teen, early 20s, like that was the mag, man. You know what I mean? That was, you got in that thing and you were, lots of good things happened to bands by being in that magazine. And they had their main writer at the time, Scott Heisel, was the guy that kind of got us in there, and he was like a big proponent of us back in the day, and he's gone on to do really cool things. I still follow him. He's like a great music guy, just like did reviews and has his own email list and stuff like that. But yeah, that was kind of I don't even remember how that came about. We must have somehow like submitted to that list or something, or I don't remember how it actually came about, but we were in there a couple times, and the 100 bands to know was every year when I got that issue. Like, I mean, I would scour that list for new music to listen to, because there was no Spotify, you know what I mean? There was no social media.
That was before your Discover Weeklies.
Right. And it was kind of like the new way to discover new bands other than going to shows or reading the thank you list in bands'
Right. Yep.
Liner notes. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's like, so yeah, I ended up finding like so many cool bands through that list. And then when we were a part of it, and I think they compared us to like Polar Bear Club, Seaweed, and Voice That's Fire or something like that. And I was like, oh, okay.
Nice.
That's cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
I still have that issue laying around here somewhere. I don't know where it's at, but I do have an issue.
Do you kind of remember how you found out about it? I mean, were you just already a subscriber and happened to open and find it, or somebody call you like, hey, man,
no, there was
you guys
a
are in
call.
the magazine?
Yeah, there was a call because I had to do like an interview with with whoever was doing the little write-up. And it was very small and short, but I do specifically remember sitting on the couch and talking to the writer from AP and just, kind of like what we're doing now, but, they just wanted to get a feel of the band and kind of what the songs were about and like what we were about as a band and,
It's been a cool experience, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was cool, man. We rode that wave for a few years after that, for sure.
Well, funny that you mentioned that because I was going to ask, was there like a noticeable difference for you, like as far as, demand for you guys to play or opportunities that open up as a result thereof?
That was a weird time because, like I said, social media at the time was MySpace, and that was still very early. So you were starting to see like the band MySpace pages, which was like a whole new way for people to connect. But yeah, I think during that time specifically, we had just started hitting the road a little bit more, playing out of town shows. We definitely used that as a selling point for, label submissions and, trying to get on bigger shows and stuff like that. It kind of built from there because our next record came out and we got a review, which was always like, back then, like now, I don't really think reviews matter all that much anymore. Yeah. But to get a review in a publication that big, and I think it was 3.5 out of 5 stars, so it wasn't like horrible, was always big. And then that kind of led to us like helping us play the Warped Tour date here in St. Louis and then playing the fest, and then everything had just kind of, So yeah, it definitely was a pretty big jumping off point for the band because that was still, I guess it was the second iteration of our lineup. Gabe Ussery wasn't in the band yet.
Okay.
So, that was bringing back old stuff, man. It's cool to reminisce about that though, because I don't really talk about it as a band, but like, I don't really sit and think about like, oh yeah, that was cool to be in that magazine.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up too, because it was kind of a weird transition period because MySpace was starting to take off, and now that we look at it in retrospect, it was just kind of like a shooting star. It didn't really last as long, in the senses of like other social media that we know present day. So
right, yeah, it was
Facebook and what have you. Kind of took off where they started.
I think somebody has said that you can still like get into your old accounts.
Yeah, people have told me that, and I've tried, and I don't very successfully.
I don't remember the password.
I don't either.
I wish I did because
the photos. That's what I want. Is my photos.
Oh yeah,
my MySpace photos.
I think I actually have like an old T-shirt from MySpace era, and it's pretty bad. Like the design was pretty bad. Like that was kind of in that weird period where like art was kind of weird and people, the haircuts were
right.
I think the cover of that magazine was Cobra Starship.
Oh damn,
yeah, that makes some sense.
Not a good band, can say, but that was kind of that was that era,
absolutely. And also like the band T-shirt designs sometimes look like they were done in like MS Paint.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was some dodgy times, but
big logos, like there's lots of stuff going on, Yeah, we definitely had a handful of those.
Yeah, for sure. So one thing I wanted to touch on with you, Brad, was, as you guys were starting to gain momentum, what were some like, we'll say like milestone shows or concerts or even festivals that you guys played that you feel like, were just like feathers in your cap, stuff that you still reflect on today?
I've always considered our band like super lucky. One, to have the people in our band that we have, because they're amazing musicians and like carry me every record. But but like the connections that we kind of had built, because when we started the band, like we were, I guess, like fairly old. I mean, we were in our late 20s already, really, when the band started. So we had already been in multiple bands before that. So we'd built all these relationships in town with bookers and, people who ran the clubs and stuff like that. So when we started, we already kind of had that built-in network. And then I guess like our old bands weren't like, I like the songs, but we weren't refined yet. We weren't great.
Sure.
And then when we put out our first record, I specifically remember Bob Fancher from, who's in Ultraman now and has since he's a great friend of the band, like know him really well now, but back in the day coming up, he was the bartender at Creepy Crawl. And it's like, if you got on his radar, and he's, Bob's not the most cheerful guy in the world.
Yeah.
So like if you got on his radar and he liked your stuff, like that was a big deal. And I specifically remember, like him and my wife, like they kind of had, like we had mutual friends. So that's kind of how the band actually started. But I ran into him at Puffs. I forget what show it was. It might've been like, he was like Poison the Well.
Good one.
Thursday, maybe. This was a long time ago, but our first 7-inch had just come out, and like he made it a point to come up and say, "Hey man, like that's pretty good." I'm like, "Oh,
nice,
thank you."
Nice.
And of course, he went on to open Foo Bar, and we played so many shows at Foo Bar. Opened up for Defeater there. Opened up for Comeback Kid there. Opened up for Flatliners there.
Yeah.
Opened up for, dude. I mean, we played so many cool shows there. Played with Crime in Stereo at Firebird.
Ah, nice.
We've had a ton of we've had an opportunity to open up for we were that band for a little while that people asked to open. All those big local shows.
Sure.
So most of those big local punk and hardcore shows, we got a chance to play.
Right.
And then obviously I mentioned the Warped Tour date, which was kind of a MySpace thing. It was a contest thing to play your local date of Warped Tour, and we won that somehow and played that, which was like a whole thing. And
sure.
I've always heard so many horror stories of playing Warped Tour, and our single date was no different than any of those horror stories about playing Warped Tour. Now, don't get me wrong. If somebody's like, "Hey, we're going to put you on the whole Warped Tour," we're probably like, "Fuck yeah, we're going to go play the whole Warped Tour."
Yeah, right.
You know, but me sitting here now, I'll be like, I want nothing to do with that.
Yeah. Just kind of a rat race, unorganized.
Well, our van broke down on the way to a local show. So,
oh my God,
we were sitting in the middle of I-70, 170. It just died in the middle lane. When we sat there for 20 minutes, I'm frantically trying to call the stage manager. I had a phone number. I'm like, dude, you're probably not going to believe this, but our van just broke down. We're 15 minutes away. Is there any way you can push our set time back? So it was this whole deal. They ended up being really cool about it. We played I think it was an Ernie Ball side stage or something, and it was just it was St. Louis.
Right.
Tour. It was so hot. It was miserable outside.
Brutal weather, yeah.
So hot. I remember walking around and going to see Alexis on Fire, who's still to this day one of my favorite bands.
Yeah.
And it was so hot. And Dallas Green, their guitar player and singer, was just overheated and hammered and just throwing up all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just there were people there watching it, but for the most part, it was whatever. But
was that 2007, Brad? I'm pretty sure I was there for the Alexis on Fire one.
It sounds right. Yeah, that sounds right. It was probably Gabe's first year in the band. So yeah, that sounds right. And then 2008 or 2009, we played the Fest in Florida, which was, I would say, to this day, probably our proudest moment.
Absolutely,
cool shows that we've played.
It's still happening.
We just got back a couple weeks ago. Me and Dan and Gabe go every year still. Pookie was on tour in Europe with his country band for the second year in a row.
Wow!
Conveniently during Fest, which we give him trouble about, but
yeah.
But we still go as fans every year because it's it's. I've been to a bunch of fests. over my years as a musician.
Right.
Played them, gone to them. It's by far like the coolest vibe for a fest, the best setup fest, the most inexpensive fest that you can go to. Like it is, and for us to be able to play that was awesome. And there's a poster right behind me, the Fest 4.
The Fest 4.
We're still trying our best to play again. Tried this year, it didn't work. So if Tony from the Fest happens to see this clip and we clip this off and put it on Instagram, Tony, we still want to play Fest next year.
Well,
but of course, with our luck, same kind of deal happened before our set at Fest. We were super stoked. We were playing the side stage of the main venue, which now the main stage is actually outside. They've changed it around a little bit, but at the time it was like a pageant size indoor venue. They had a side stage set up right before you walked in, and we were opening that day up. It was like that Saturday, I think. And we get to the venue. We were the first one to play at like 1 p.m. or something, and the power in the entire venue went out.
Oh shit!
Oh my god!
We're all ready to play. Like,
oh my god!
People had started filtering in because I forget who was playing the main stage right after us, but it was a big band. Like it was a big band, so there was going to be people there early. And we sit there for an hour and a half until the power came back. Well, of course, by that point, everybody had left. And we're frantically like trying to tell our set time. And I don't even, we didn't have a Twitter. Like I think we had Facebook at the time.
Yeah.
Our set's been pushed back. We're still playing. Blah blah blah. Ended up playing. It was a great show. It just so happened that particular year, like a ton of people from St. Louis had come down, and so we had a decent crowd. My brother was there, who had lived out of town, so he got to come and see us play. He hasn't really ever gotten to see us play all that much because he's always lived out of town.
Nice.
But I remember, I want to say we played right before Red City Radio. They were playing the side stage after us and got like some very nice compliments from those guys. And we ended up playing a bunch of shows with them after that. And, but yeah, that's long story short about cool shows that we played. That's definitely, that was probably our coolest show. Like other than playing like the big local shows, and we got to play in New York City and Brooklyn and Boston, and we did a whole East Coast thing, and playing in some of those cities was awesome, and played in a couple legendary venues over there. And we played we probably get into it later, but our farewell show that we did when we took like a little hiatus was definitely special too. So definitely I consider myself very lucky to have played the venues that I've gotten to play with the people, and just the pure volume of shows that we've been able to play over the years has been pretty special.
Before we run off and leave it too hardcore, you said that you went to the fest this year. Who was your favorite artist you saw this year?
Just out of curiosity.
God. That's a tough one.
Let's see. Obviously, I was on the fence about going this year until I saw the lineup and saw that Quicksand was headlining the last day.
Ooh.
I haven't seen Quicksand since 1997 at the American Theater with Deftones and Snapcase.
Oh my God.
And Quicksand and Walter Schreifels, like Walter's one of my favorite songwriters of all time.
Absolutely. I
Quicksand's one of my favorite bands of all time. We've covered tons of their songs just because we're such Quicksand nerds. So they played the last night. They played Slip in its entirety. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So that would have to be my number one.
Incredible. Jealous.
Yeah. It was here. Let me. I got a peek at my phone because I have pictures.
Well, I'm pretty sure Jerome's Dream played. I don't know if you get to catch them.
I did not get to catch them because, unfortunately, the way Fest is run is you're going to miss bands that you want to see.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be bands butting up against each other. And I had them on my list, and I forget who played at the same time, but it was good enough that I had to miss them. Ways Away was amazing. Taking Meds, we saw nice. Ways Away twice, and we saw Taking Meds twice. Taking Meds is playing Monday at Platypus.
Oh shit!
With Squint, Fortunate Son, and Family Medicine. It's going to be a insane show.
Yeah.
If you haven't heard the new Taking Meds record, it's brilliant. It's like modern day Goo Goo Dolls, Gin Blossom, good poppy rock. It's amazing. So we got to see them play twice. Let's see. I Am the Avalanche was a great one for me. I'm a huge fan of Vinny Caruana, who was in the movie Life and has been in like so many other projects. He's one of my favorite songwriters. BRAD was amazing to see.
Oh yeah,
they played Frame and Canvas in its entirety, which was awesome. Sparta played Wiretap Scars in its entirety. Was awesome.
That's cool.
Saw like half of Gore's set. I'd never seen Gore before.
Oh, nice.
They opened up the entire fest. They main stage, first band, first night. People running up to I got to be up front for Gore. I want to get sprayed with blood.
Yeah.
You see these people walking around later that night, just stained red, like completely like. We made the wrong decision. We should have not gone right up front. I was watching safe from the side. It was amazing though.
Nice
to be able to see Gore was pretty sweet. Saw Thursday twice. Thursday played twice. It was an unbelievable lineup. I mean, the best part about Fest really is not really all the headliners though. It's like they've got a couple really small venues. That you can almost always catch a band that you've never heard of before and just kind of, you're hanging out, next band plays, you're like, holy shit, like who the fuck are these guys?
Right.
So yeah, that's, if we ever get to play again, it doesn't sound like they're going to stop anytime soon. I mean,
well, that's good.
Yeah. So our plan is to just keep on keeping on and hopefully filters down that way. So.
Well, I'm happy being a Quicksand fan that you actually got to see them Slip in its entirety, man. That's
and
a
to
dream.
Make it even better, like, I mean, I think most people know that they've been touring with Stephen Brodsky now.
Yeah, I was going to ask if he played that set with them.
He played second guitar with them, and it just, God, it sounds, Brodsky's one of my favorites too. Caven's one of my favorite bands ever.
Yeah.
And he fits that band so well. Like, Walter, I love Walter, but like the smiles they all had on their faces, like just smiling at each other the whole show. They didn't do any bullshit talking between the songs. Like Walter would come out to like the riser and just kind of look at her and be like, "What's up?" Yeah. Get back and just play the next song. So
that's cool.
Yeah, it made the trip well worth it. So
yeah, I gotta catch Brodsky with him because Brodsky's like, anybody asks me what my like favorite modern day musician is, I usually go with Brodsky by default just because everything he touches is great.
Oh, dude, yeah, it's, even no misses with him. His older solo stuff. I don't know if you've ever heard.
Yeah,
I forget what his first solo record is called. But just very like folksy, like indie kind of acoustic stuff. Like he's just a great songwriter, and like everything he does.
I've got a Hit and Mystery. It's Hit and Mystery, I think, on vinyl, and like that kind of made me think of like Peter Gabriel. Some of the songs he even had on there, like I was like, "Fuck, this is crazy."
He's so talented. Like his voice is amazing, and it was cool. Quicksand was awesome.
Well, that's really awesome, man. I'm glad you got that opportunity.
Yeah, it was good.
So I know that you guys got a lot of stuff cooking present day, not to, skip over too much here, but, one thing, of course, that caught my attention was some of the new singles that you guys put out. I know this year in the spring you guys did the Split as well, cassette release. Let's talk about that and kind of what wheels you guys got in motion for this year.
Yeah, the Split was, we put out Science and Reason in 2020. It was scheduled to come out in like April of 2020, which
we all know what happened, right?
It completely fell on deaf ears. It was bad timing. It was the first stuff we had written since like 2000. We wrote like some one-off single in like 2013, but it was the first new stuff we had written in almost 10 years. So we did that. That came out, and then we just, we made it a point to keep playing. We had one song. It's NVO, the short song that's on the Split.
Yeah.
Mike Jones from Encapsulated, a handful of years ago, put out a comp called Quarter Hour Power, where there was like, I don't know how many bands on it, but it was 25 minutes long. I'm an idiot. 25 bands, every band had a song. It was a minute long or less. And we weren't like quite active at that time, so we didn't have anything, but he said he was going to do a volume 2. So when he said that, we're like, oh, we'll crank out a short little song. So we wrote NVO specifically for that. Well, that never materialized, and we just kind of had that song hanging around. And then had started writing again, and like wrote the second single, Hydrophobia, like pretty quick.
Yeah,
like very quick. Within like
very good. Yeah,
like within a couple practices, like the song was done. And we were kind of trying to figure out what we wanted to do with it. We're like, well, it's only like 2.5 minutes worth of music. Like I would love to put it out on our own, but I don't know if it's like financially like worth like.
Right.
We're not a band that is just going to put something out digitally. Like I've always, I'm just my OCD. I have to have a physical copy of it.
Yeah.
So we're like, well, what about doing a split 7-inch? We've never done a split before. So we started thinking of bands who were our homies and we've played with like multiple times in the past over the years. And Breakmouth Annie is always one of those bands that I don't even know how many times we've played with them, but just we've been down with each other since day one, back in the Lemons days when Lemons was having punk rock shows. So they were down to do it, and it was going to be a split 7-inch, and vinyl turnaround times were still insanely slow. Like,
yeah.
Like most of the quotes I got were giving me like a year turnaround time for a 7-inch. And I was just like, like I really want to put it out on vinyl, but I don't want to wait a year for 3 minutes of music to come out.
Right.
So I approached them about just doing a cassette because we could get those turned around in like 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And I think they reluctantly said yes. I know they were super stoked on doing vinyl too, which I always am, but I'm like, guys, 3 minutes of music, dude, for us, I'm not waiting a year for this to turn around. And just the logistics of like doing a split, and it's not anybody's fault, but you're not on your own clock. You're on somebody else's clock too. So it just took a little longer to put together than I was anticipating. And then the turnaround time for the vinyl was a no-go. So we just did it on cassette. I think it turned out really cool, though. I think I did all the artwork for it. I did all the photography for it, did the layout and everything. I started shooting film photography again 3 or 4 years ago. I guess it was probably right during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I wanted, like, I really hadn't shown off any of my work or anything, so I wanted to use some of that as a way to kind of like show off some of my film stuff, and and they left it up to me to do it, and turned out really cool. And Don from Record Space was nice enough to split the release with us, and we did 3 exclusive colors, one for Breakmouth, one for us, and one for the Record Space, and
nice.
turned out good. And the songs I thought were cool, and Breakmouth songs were awesome, and that was kind of like a leftover song, and then one that we just kind of banged out. So that's what those 2 singles were.
What I like about that split that you guys did, especially I feel like it kind of captures the energy and the spirit of how bands used to do splits, and that is like they were band homies, but they didn't necessarily sound the same or like have like the exact same genre or subgenre. And it was a nice way of complementing because band A's for fans could be subjected to band B that maybe they wouldn't have listened to them before, but now they've got the seal of approval from their band that they like, right?
Right.
And it goes both ways.
Double exposure, right?
Right.
Yeah, that was definitely the idea from the beginning. Like we've always been, we're kind of a band anyway that we're kind of hard to like pigeonhole. Like,
sure,
right? Yeah,
we've played with so many different kinds of bands. We're not really like a hardcore band. We're not really a punk band. We're not a metal band, but like lots of metalheads seem to like us when we play like random shows. So yeah, like we're never gonna fit with anybody, and that's kind of been our deal. But yeah, Breakmouth is just straight ahead rock and roll, punk rock band.
Yeah.
Bob writes unbelievable songs, so they were definitely like it was a no brainer to pick those dudes, and Bob had just started playing with Tim and Denny. Tim's been in tons of bands before. Denny's been in tons of bands. So like it was pretty much a brand new iteration of Breakmouth, and Tim Pinkerton is one of my favorite drummers of all time. He also plays in Pleasure Center. One of my favorite drummers to watch. And I'm like, oh, dude, I want to hear what these guys sound like recorded with Tim and Denny on bass and drums, and it sounds great. So yeah, it was a good choice. I like the songs a lot.
Very cool. I also think too, like the fact that you had to resort to cassette actually ended up being pretty cool too, because that was kind of a very hardcore thing to do.
Right.
As
Yeah.
well,
Going the cassette route.
Yeah.
Yeah. And cassettes are kind of in with the kids now.
Yeah.
Right.
This is the new physical, right?
It is. And I get why, because they're easy to do. They're
Affordable.
They're affordable. You don't
Good
have to sell them
markup.
for a ton.
Right.
They're quick turnarounds.
Yeah.
You can kind of do cool things with them with the different color shells and stuff.
Right.
Like I'm not really listening to cassettes. I have a
Sure.
cassette deck up by my turntable upstairs.
Yeah.
But I'm not listening to a ton of cassettes. I'm just not.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody else is either. I think they're just
Sure.
buying them as physical pieces of art to put on a shelf and display
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So
I would say, yeah, most of my purchases are that route, or if I can't get it in a vinyl, I'll resort to cassette sometimes.
Right.
But
Right.
if it's
it
a band
depends.
I really care about, like I will always buy the
Right.
physical copy. Like I
Right.
don't care what it is.
Right.
Just to show my appreciation. Like I'm not just going to stream you. I want to
Right.
support you guys and buy whatever you have. So
Yeah. Big same. And also it has to do with, obviously, just like anything else, the manufacturer. Was it recorded or mixed for cassette too?
Right.
Are you just ripping this from digital to cassette? So it's just like anything else. But I will say that the deterioration rate on cassettes are very much more obvious
oh yeah,
Right.
on the transfers as well.
yeah. I have a handful. I still have a bunch of when I was in college, mixtapes were probably at its peak.
Sure.
I still have a bunch of my mixtapes that have really good stuff on it, but they don't sound great anymore. They're
No.
20 plus years old, but if they're cool to have, you do
Sure.
your little artwork and give your girlfriend a mixtape
Yeah.
and so
Yeah. Get the old radio ads on there occasionally.
Yeah.
That was me, man.
Oh yeah, I definitely grew up in the era where I would listen to terrestrial radio and be like, coming back after the break, we're gonna play Green Jelly, and I'm gonna be like,
Right,
waiting here
right.
for it, waiting, press the
Absolutely.
Oh, there it is, yeah.
Yeah, that I found myself doing that more so with artists that my dad wasn't really into or whatever. So I was kind of a closeted Weezer fan because he just thought it was stupid, So
Yeah.
early
You don't have to be
'90s
a
Weezer.
closeted Weezer fan.
Not
You
any
can be an
day.
outright Weezer fan.
Right. But I was always kind of afraid because Dad thought that was stupid. So I'd go record it.
I specifically remember my dad driving me to Best Buy to buy the Blue album.
Nice.
One of my specific memories. I guess I was probably freshman in high school or something when it came out. I was probably 13. I remember they used to always drive me to Best Buy. When the day the CD dropped, I had to be the first one in line to buy that CD.
That's awesome.
I do remember him driving me to Best Buy in South County to buy Weezer, the Blue album.
That's
Still
awesome.
one of the greatest albums of all time.
Oh yeah, it's a great album for sure, man. Stood the test of time. Unfortunately, gonna say it, I don't know that they're gonna have a better album ever, in my opinion.
No.
I mean, it's hard to.
Pinkerton is
Pinkerton's
great,
good.
but that's
Yeah.
pretty much where it stopped for me with
Same.
Weezer.
Yeah.
But what are you gonna do?
Right, absolutely. So I know we kind of alluded to it earlier, and that's the fact that you guys did take a bit of a hiatus. Let's talk about that and your farewell show, and then what ultimately led to you guys getting back together too, Brad.
So I guess it was probably around 2013 when we recorded just a random one-off single called "Drift and Drown," which is crazily our highest streamed song for some reason. I don't really know why, but it is, at least on Spotify. It kind of, it sounds like Disappeared, but it's got a little bit more rock and roll vibe, which was at the time. Dan and Gabe and Pookie were also playing in a band called The Wilderness with Bobby Stevens, which was more of rock and American rock and roll kind of band, and that's kind of how that song sounds to me a little bit. But at that time, we were by that point in our mid 30s, and I was still cutting grass for a living and doing landscaping, and I just got to the point where me personally, I'm dude, I got to do something else. I'm 35 years old. I don't want to I had an opportunity to buy the company I was working for. I didn't want to do that. I graduated college and have degrees, and I have a master's degree in public relations, and I have degrees in communications and all that kind of stuff. And I just, like, the places I worked early on, I hated it. So I went back. I went back to construction like very quickly after graduating college, because it also gave me the opportunity to go tour, which, I worked for a great guy, and he's like, yeah, dude, whenever, you got a job and you come back. So, but by the time I got to 35, it was like the work was starting to beat me up a little bit.
Sure.
My brother is in the Army, and I ended up starting to get really into fitness and doing CrossFit a lot, and through that I met a lot of people in the fire service. So I was like, I wonder if that's something I can do. So when I guess it was probably a little earlier than that, I was probably like 31, 32. I went and got my EMT license, and then directly got my paramedic license. And then after that, went through the fire academy. And long story short, I'm a firefighter paramedic now. I have been for 9 years.
That's awesome, dude.
So during that time of like all that school, like paramedic school is a year long, and it's a ton of clinical hours at the hospital. It's a ton of clinical hours in an ambulance. It's school. And then going through the academy is every day for like 4 months. I just didn't, we had kind of fell off practicing. We weren't writing new songs. We weren't playing shows anymore. I had all this stuff going on. So I was like, what if we just, like, because Dan's been one of my best friends for almost 30 years now. I'm like, dude, we're not going to break up, but let's just say we're going away for a little while. Yeah. Hiatus. We'll call it a farewell show. So we played a farewell show. I think it was in 2014 or 2015 at the demo with Better Days, who we've played thousands of shows with. Not thousands, but a lot. And that was kind of it for that. And that kind of lasted, I don't know. I mean, getting a job at that time in the fire service was very time consuming. Like, testing everywhere, driving all over town to drop, applications off, and then going and testing and interviewing, and then not getting it and going to the next one. So we ended up we all still hung out anyway, but we all ended up being in the same place at a memorial service for our friend Eric Fritz, who I used to spin records with at a place down on South Grand, and he'd been in the music scene in St. Louis for a long time. He was a few years older than us, but ended up being like one of our like biggest supporters as a band. Has done a couple tattoos on me, did a bunch of artwork for us, was at every show, like would tell everybody who would listen about us. He moved to Vegas, and then he ended up just getting real sick. He had a lot of like autoimmune disorders, and ended up passing away. And at that time, I'm horrible with years now that they're going on, but it was probably 2016, 17, and we were all at the memorial service, and his wife had brought like a bunch of his artwork and just kind of like spread it out, and was like, anybody that wants any of this, like, he would love you to have it. And there was a skull with like these feathers coming out of it that he had done for one of our t-shirt designs. And I was like, oh man, fuck. That kind of hit me,
Yeah.
And we all just kind of looked at each other. We're like, why are we not playing? Like, and at that time I'd gotten past all, like, I'd gotten a job, and, everything had kind of slowed down a little bit. I had already had a kid, and he was a few years older at the time. So we were all just kind of like, yeah, dude, like, why are we not, like, what? Let's just play. Who cares? Like, we don't have to like go on tour all the time anymore.
Yeah.
We just practice, and we, have a built-in practice space in Gabe's studio. Like,
right.
What are we doing?
Right.
So that's kind of where the comeback started, and we played a comeback show at Sinkhole with Breakmouth and Better Days. So yeah, that's kind of how that happened.
Yeah, and Sinkhole is one of my fafavorite places to go, and definitely the right kind of place for your vibe and the type of performance that you guys bring.
Yeah, that's just our style, man. 100 people, pack it in, play on the floor. You know, kind of the way Platypus is now.
Right.
which is where we played the last couple of shows. But and it's just been kind of it's almost been it was a blessing in disguise, I guess, to take that little bit of time off. Because now we're kind of like back in this mode where it's like, all right, like we put out writing new songs again, like for us at a pretty rapid pace, which is for most bands still pretty slow paced because we're all still crazy busy in life and stuff like that. But once the split came out, I'm like, dude, this is probably the best stuff we've ever done. And Gabe has only grown as an engineer, so it sounds amazing. Yeah. And now he's stoked to like make the next release like sound even better. So we've got 3 songs now, almost finished, which are going to be part of a new full length. But we'll probably be releasing at least a couple of those songs when they're done as singles, and then a special little cover that we're recording too. So
exciting!
Hell yeah!
Pretty stoked about new music and getting out there now that my son's almost 10 years old and can kind of fend for himself.
So start getting a little bit of that independence in them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So now we're kind of getting the itch to get back out on the road a little bit.
Yeah.
Brad, I don't know if this happens for you. I know this is something that's kind of a dream for me, as crazy or as extreme that might sound to some people, but I have kind of like this desire or will for like my kids to actually come out and see me perform live, you know, just to kind of give them that, not so much the itch, but to at least send a message to them that says like it's never too late to like try and chase your dreams. Is that something that you feel like that maybe lives inside of you?
Funny you mentioned that because the show next weekend is going to be his first show ever.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and he's going to love it.
Very nice.
I hope so. He's a very shy kid. He can be a little awkward sometimes.
Yeah.
But he's my only child, so I have one. So it's just it's me and him and my wife all the time. And I kind of met my wife through music too. So music is a huge part of both of our lives and our family's life. And there's always music on. So it's like I'm never going to try to like push him, to listen to like a certain kind of music, but like through osmosis, he's going to listen to some of the same stuff that I listen to just because it's on all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope. He's probably going to be like me, where I think he's going to be a little slow and hesitant to pick up an instrument, which is like one of my biggest regrets ever. Is that I just couldn't sit down and focus and play the guitar for more than 2 minutes at a time. Yeah. Without seeing a squirrel and like going and doing something else.
Understandable.
Oh my God. It's just like, I'm still to this day, like I can play, but I'm just not very good.
I just got my first drum set at 34, but it's not good. It's good.
Dude, the older you get, it is harder to learn stuff like that, man. Yeah. It's just, luckily for me, like I have a pretty good ear for music. And I know a little bit about like music theory and stuff like that, but it's just, I wasn't one of those kids that sat in his room for 9 hours and just learned how to play songs and learned how to play. I just wasn't. I was outside. I was playing sports. I was, chasing girls, riding my bike, like doing whatever. I just I couldn't focus on it long enough. So that's why I just use this thing.
Some people are like a little bit more naturally inclined to those things too, I feel like, because I've had friends too that, they would practice, let's say like a half or a quarter the amount of time that I would. And I like felt like they were a better musician than me at various times of my life too, which would just drive me crazy, They would catch on to things quicker, Yeah.
I a big moment for me over the last couple of years playing music, I'd finally gotten to the point where I was like, I could like when we were writing new music, I could probably bring my guitar in and just kind of like look at what Dan's doing and kind of play along with him, if only to just give me a better feeling of the music, and I can bring it back home and just play the same riff over and over. And so I like it took a lot for me to around those 3 guys who are no one will ever tell me that anybody is better at their instrument than those 3 guys. Dan playing guitar, Gabe as a drummer, and Pookie as a bass player.
Yeah.
It was intimidating for me, even though we've been a band for 20 years. Like I showed up with a guitar one day and And Pookie kind of looked at me like, "What the fuck are you doing, dude?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "I'm gonna play guitar with you guys, man."
Yeah.
They're like, "What? You got a problem with that?" And I had turned it down like just so I could like kind of hear it like behind me, but
right.
That's awesome.
But back to my son, he do whatever he wants to do. He wants to play
absolutely
instrument. For me, guitar it always just seemed so mathematical to me, and I am so bad at math. I had to take basic math in college to get my math credit, which was the class that they gave elementary school teachers to learn how to teach math to like kindergartners.
I did the same thing in my college. I think I took elementary algebra, and
dude, so horrible.
Yeah, something like that is what it was called.
Yeah, it's just one of those instruments where I'm like, maybe if I would have played drums a little earlier on, I would have maybe been okay, but I didn't. So
yeah. For some reason, like I kind of see it personally. For me, it was kind of in reverse. So like I'm primarily a drummer, and I picked up guitar kind of late and bass, like in my late teenage years, and learned how to play. And I guess maybe back to like that innate thing, it was a little bit easier for me to play the drums, but I was also like bad at math, but I felt like the guitar was easier. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, but
some people have always told me like, oh, I just see the guitar as like shapes. I'm like, well, shapes are geometry. Sure. That's math too. So
that's
like,
fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
That is fair.
It just, give me a power chord. And I'm good. I can follow along with some power chords,
Yeah, one of the greatest bands of all time is all power chords, the Stooges, man. I mean,
man. Ramones, like,
absolutely. A lot of gravitas behind what those boys are playing. So Misfits, some of my favorite music is just power chords.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. No shame.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. But the plan is to maybe have a guest appearance on the next record on some like second guitar.
Very cool.
Dan's like, I'll try to write something that you can play. I'm like, well, don't like dumb it down so bad that like, I still want you to be able to rip, because Dan rips. So
right, yeah, for sure. A couple more things I wanted to hit on before we got you out of here, Brad. Too, and you've been so generous with your time, so we appreciate that, of course.
I got nothing to do, man. I'm sitting in a basement with a treadmill in it, and I'm just chilling.
I hear you. We kind of mentioned it a few different times too, and that's Gabe's engineering. As he's went over the years, it's noticeable, in the sound. He's gotten better and better. And I remember, some of the first times I was hearing about Gabe and people were like playing tracks that they recorded with him stuff. I was like really impressed. I'm like, well, you think he's good at recording, you got to hear him drumming. So when I actually saw him drum and stuff too, I was impressed there too. And it's kind of amazing how talented that guy is specifically.
Oh yeah, I just lucked. I mean, I lucked out. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like me and Dan both. Like we started this band as just the old band had broken up. We're like, well, we got to do something, and ended up our first drummer is Thad Martin, who plays drums in Fortunate Son and Ashes and Iron, and been in a couple other bands and stuff.
Good guy,
and he's an amazing drummer too. But at the time, like when we started it, he was in another band, and he was just kind of doing it to do it because he was a friend of my wife or whatever. And the fact that me and Dan just like kind of Gabe and Pookie both like just fell into our laps, like I mean we asked them if they wanted to do it and they said yes, and then we've had the same lineup now for probably over 15 years. So.
Very nice. Yeah, such a talented dude for sure.
Yeah.
And I know you guys have got some shows coming up too, right? Or at least a show next weekend in particular, I know.
Next weekend, playing with Wes Hoffman and friends, good friend of ours. We're super honored that he asked us to play this show particularly. Yeah. It's at the Duck Room. We've never played there before, so I'm stoked to play that room. Mark another one off of our list.
Yeah.
And then, so his idea behind this show was to have like one like kind of scene veteran play, one out of town band play, and then one like young band play. So Uncanny Valley, the local band, super young, I think. Stay the Course from Kansas, and then us, and then Wes and friends, and that'll be probably our last show of the year. I know it's their last show of the year.
Yeah.
And then we're just going to start kind of hammering away at the new record and see what next year brings us.
Very cool. And of course, anybody that's watching us now and watches the show or listens to the show is aware of that name, Wes Hoffman. Wes, a former guest of the show.
Great guy.
So if you guys haven't gotten a chance to check out Wes, and you guys haven't checked out the Disappeared, you got next weekend, right?
Right.
So two birds, one stone, right?
Yeah.
Two birds, one stone, baby.
Tickets are on sale all over all of our socials and Instagram and stuff. The link's up there. Trying to push some pre-sale tickets. We've never really done that before. And Wes said he's never done that before either, so we're just trying something different. We're doing everybody who buys a pre-sale ticket gets entered into a drawing for like a T-shirt and some merch from all the bands playing. So,
I love that. That's a great idea.
If you buy a ticket through Ticketmaster, you got a chance to win some cool shit.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
Very cool. Well, I would like to transition to the point for our audience to get you to know you, Brad, personally a little bit better and some of the things about you, too. So, one thing in particular, we've kind of touched on some of these things so far, so I'm kind of curious to see what you might throw at us, and that is, what are some like musical influences personally for you that maybe somebody would not suspect, judging a book by its cover?
I mean, if you don't know me very well, my one of my favorite music genres of all time is ska and rocksteady and reggae. The band before my emo rock band or whatever, I was a part of the third wave ska, 1995 through 97 or 98, and just became obsessed with that music.
Was that the Pro Skater revival? That's what they call the revival of that music, the Pro Skater revival.
Yeah, it was probably a little before that. This was probably, I guess maybe what really popped it off back then was Boss Tones, Mighty Boss Tones, and Rancid Outcome the Wolves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've just rocksteady particularly and reggae. I love that music. I don't really think that influences my band stuff at all.
Sure.
But yeah, definitely love that. And my favorite band of all time, which, take it or leave it, say what you want to, I don't care. Oasis is one of my favorite bands of all time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So just absolutely there was a meme that was going around not too long ago. It was like that. It was something like, it was that meme where it's the guy and his girlfriend and the other girl's walking away and he's looking at her, And it was me, all my friends listening to new music, and the girl walking away was just Oasis. And the guy's just looking at Oasis.
Going back to your comfort.
Yeah. Dude, there people say what you want about the Gallagher brothers in that band,
right.
But they had some of the best, they've written some of the best songs.
Oh yeah,
history of rock and roll. So
it's crazy, how much they've impacted present day artists that people aren't aware of. So I mean, I know this band always talks about them, but if you don't read their interviews and stuff, you'd be shocked to know one of Def Heaven's favorite bands is Oasis, and it's actually impacted the way they've written progressions and stuff.
Yeah, it's coming. They're, I think, slowly over time, people have slowly appreciated more and more what they did for rock and roll music.
Absolutely.
And they very much did have a punk rock attitude about it all. That's why people hate those two so much, is because they were so daft back in the day. They just didn't give a fuck about anything.
Right.
They just wanted to play shows and drink and do drugs. That's what they wanted to do.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, dude, I got the chance to see Noel Gallagher in Nashville over the summer, and it was amazing. Yeah. And now I get the chance to see Liam this coming summer. Hopefully he plays. It's the 30th anniversary of Definitely Maybe, so hopefully he does a little tour of the States, and I will pay a lot of money to go see that show.
I just got my hands on a copy of What's the Story, finally.
There you go. There you go.
I told myself, I'm not going to – I want, everything from them in general, but I told myself I had to buy that album first before I buy anything else, because that is the record for me,
Absolutely. And those records, some of the songs on the B-sides of those first two records are some of their best songs ever. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I would say, though, those are probably two things that if you didn't really know me might surprise you. The reggae one probably more than the Oasis one, because, Oasis is cool again.
Yeah, right.
They've always been cool to me, though. But.
Sure, absolutely. What is a hobby of yours, Brad, that people may not suspect as well? I know you kind of mentioned the CrossFit thing earlier, but I wouldn't say that that's a stretch, having seen you performed and stuff before, just kind of the high energy that you bring and stuff. So that one doesn't really shock me. Is there anything else that you can throw at somebody?
Yeah, and that's not really a hobby anymore because it is like technically a part-time job because I work at a local gym here in town on my off days from the firehouse. But film photography has definitely been like a huge part of my life the last few years, and just I've kind of tried to think of some ways to do stuff with it. I hesitated for a long time to put any of it online, and then completely wiped my Instagram of everything and just only am posting some photo drops from some of my travels and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, hobby wise, like between the band and my part-time job and my full-time job, and I barely even have enough time to go out here and shoot photos. Coach a little youth soccer.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
keeping busy when you're already busy, man.
a new hobby of mine since like July is taking ice baths though every day. I know that's I know that's the new viral trend, but it is amazing.
Have you been able to tell a difference right away?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Really?
Absolutely. I would imagine.
My sleep is so much better. I'm 44 years old now, so I get a little arthritis.
Sure.
Helps with that. Helps with anxiety.
Yeah.
It's actually been really good. It's been really good.
That's awesome, man.
So are you just like doing this at home in the tub, or did you get a special
vat? You can get these like $100 like little vinyl tubs that you set up. We have one at work. It's kind of making its way through the firehouse now. And I just have one set up in the back. And I get it down to about 47 degrees and sitting there for 4 minutes. And
man, I got to do this. Cause
I do want to try it, but I'm like,
I will tell you this. Like, you do kind of start getting acclimated to the temperatures where you can get like a little bit colder, but it is never not hard to get in there. Like
I'm sure.
Every day. It is so hard to get in there. I saw a joke the other day, and it kind of goes along with CrossFit back in the day, where people are like, "Oh, the hardest part about CrossFit is not telling people that you CrossFit."
Right.
Now it's like the hardest thing about doing ice baths is not talking about that you do ice baths.
Yeah. Well, I noticed when somebody turned me on to like actually taking.
Good. What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Right.
Somebody like turned me on to taking cold showers, and I was like, "Oh no, I'll never take a cold shower."
That's a huge thing.
I'll never do that. And I started doing that, and that improved a lot of stuff for me. Blood pressure and anxiety, and
absolutely,
and just helps wake you up.
Like I was talking to somebody at work the other. There's a reason why the ice baths have been in like training rooms in like athletic facilities for 50 years. You know what I mean? It works. It just so happens now that somebody did it and put it on TikTok, and now like everybody thinks it's this viral trend when it's been going on forever.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
I wouldn't call it a hobby, but it just popped into my head.
Hey, I'll count it.
Yeah. Anything to help with your mental health or whatever, or anything.
And that's absolutely true. That's one of the main reasons why I started doing it. A lot of our material recently has been like my struggle with anxiety and like mental health and stuff like that, and that's kind of why I dove into it to try and see if that helped out a little bit. And it does for a period of time. It's not an end all be all, but anything that you can do to improve your mental state, you should be doing.
Sometimes it's kind of like the death by 1,000 cuffs method. You have to kind of take those multiple stabs from various angles.
Yeah.
Let's talk about artists that the Disappeared have not played with that might be like on a shortchange wish list for you. Like, what would be? Let's do the old Mount Rushmore. So 4 picks. Like, what's 4 artists that you guys have not played with that would be kind of bucket list bands for you?
Oh man. Well, I think if you were to ask the band as a whole, Quicksand would be on that list. Helmet would be on that list.
Nice.
Trying to think of some other bands that like we've always covered bands before, And that was kind of one of our things for a while, was picking like a cool cover and like learning it and playing it at a show for a little bit of a stretch and then doing another one. I would say if Lifetime ever got back together, to be able to play with Lifetime, a close second would be Kid Dynamite, because we've covered some Kid Dynamite stuff. And then if you're going to bring it all the way down, I guess, Paint It Black would suffice, because they're still active.
Right.
And Dan Eamon is the king. I would say those probably 3, I guess. Quicksand, Helmet, and then any iteration of like the Lifetime family tree.
Okay.
Yeah. Solid.
So let's lean into your personal fandoms more. So let's say that you were to book a dream festival and you could see anybody anytime, regardless of live or dead. What 4 acts are you going to see?
A proper Oasis reunion.
There you go.
Number one. Everybody's talking about it.
Yeah.
Nobody thinks it's going to... I don't think it's going to happen, ever. Some of my friends think it is going to happen. I just don't think it's ever going to happen. But it would have to... so Liam's doing the Definitely Maybe, but he has his own band, and Noel has his own band. A proper reunion. Get the brothers back together. Yeah. Squash the beef. Write them a check for however many millions of dollars it's going to take them to play the show. It's going to
be that right there that's going to
take your money, just play the songs, and just do it.
Yeah.
So that would be number 1 on the list. Oh, boy. I'm trying to think of some of my favorites of all time. I mean, it's crazy because I've gotten to see so many of those bands recently, because they've either gotten back together and are now active and playing fests and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh man. If I could have the chance to see Nirvana,
yes, absolutely,
properly, because that's really the band that tipped it off for me when I was 11 years old.
Absolutely,
I had just never heard anything like that before. That would have been an amazing experience to be able to see that band live. Rage Against the Machine was another one, super young, 8th grade. I didn't have any older brothers or sisters, so I wasn't exposed to that kind of stuff until a little later, and it was just through sheer luck that I heard some of that stuff, and man, the first time I heard Rage at that age, I was mind was blown, and I was hoping to be able to see that last tour, but then they canceled it because he blew his Achilles out. Hopefully, it gets rescheduled, because I'll pay good money to go see that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I would say those 3 bands. So we're going back to 90s stuff, the stuff when I was between 11 and 15 years old.
Yeah.
I don't have these stories about, oh man, I saw Youth of Today at this tiny club my brother took me to. It's no, that was just a kid from the county going to Catholic grade school that stumbled his way into punk rock.
You got another artist you can throw at us?
Oh, one more. I'll keep it in the same. I'll keep it in the same vein. Alice in Chains.
Hell yeah!
There you go.
Original.
Yeah, with Lane.
Yeah.
Lane.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a huge band for me too, man.
You know what? I'll throw one recent band on there. Alexis on Fire.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Only not just because they are one of my favorite bands ever. I flew out to San Francisco a couple of years ago and got to see them because George, their lead singer, is also a firefighter, and I've listened to a couple interviews with him, and our paths to music and then to the fire service and then back to music are kind of the same. So I would love to be able to play with that band and sit down and talk shop with him,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That was a big band for us, I remember.
In our friendship, for sure.
Yeah, they're so good, man. Their newest album is unbelievable.
I know.
Really fantastic.
It's so good.
I've been enjoying the hell out of it. Kudos to those boys.
I don't know what I expected.
Right.
I mean, I expected it to be good, but, they just, there's surprises here and there, and how they all, diverged and went on to do good things independently as well.
Right, yeah.
I was a huge fan of Gallows even before they had the lead singer change.
We got to play with Gallows in Chicago.
Oh, nice.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
That's cool. before the singer change.
Oh wow,
yeah. They're good, man. They are good. They're solid. But yeah, the guy from Alexis on Fire went on to be in Gallows, and
that was shortly after we played with them. I think. I don't think their singer.
Which I didn't see that coming. I didn't really see it as a fit when I heard the news, but then once you heard it, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this works. They were a monster.
Unbelievable live.
That's awesome.
That was kind of one of those shows that we lucked into too. We had played Chicago the night before. One of our buddies was like, "Hey man," he's like, "Gallows is playing in town tomorrow," and it was the last day of like a tour, and he's like, I think I might be able to get you guys on the show. I'm like, are you fucking serious? So we stuck around for an entire extra day, just like waiting for word that they were going to put us on the show. We found out at like 3:00 in the afternoon and went down to Reggie's, and they put us on the show, and we got to open, and we watched Gallows from this little balcony, and they were just like, I had never really heard them before. I'd heard of them.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy cow, these guys.
Yeah.
Go for it, dude.
Yeah. I hadn't seen them until I saw them at Warped Tour. It was like 05 or 06 in St. Louis. They weren't really on my radar, but immediately we were buying CDs, shirts.
Yeah.
We got really into them there for a while.
Great. And they're British. They're British, so I'm a sucker for anything from the UK.
We were having we'd have card games, and we get cigars and shit, and we just play Gallows the whole time and just listen to Gallows and smoke cigars and drink and play cards.
It sounds like a
whole
party.
thing. It was a whole thing
back in the day.
Yeah. Well, Brad, what's some stuff that you're currently spinning? What's some stuff that's heavy in the rotation for you?
Oh, let's see. I'm gonna have to pull it up, and I'll give you a little taste. The Taking Meds record I've been just listening to. Yeah, nonstop.
Yeah, I still need to listen to that new record.
If anybody is not doing anything Monday night, it's going to be a killer show.
Hell yeah.
The new Gel record, I've been jamming a lot.
God,
got to see them at Fest. They were amazing. Yeah. They were so fun to watch. Military Gun has been on.
That's good.
My son loves Military Gun.
Really?
Cool.
Yeah, that's one of his deals.
Have you checked out the new Angel Dust?
I listened to a couple songs. I'm not a huge fan of Angel Dust.
The singles are not I'm talking the one with the $sign in it too, not the new metalish one. But,
yeah.
But yeah, they. I will say the singles on this record do not do the record justice. The B-sides and stuff are excellent in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's a weird mix.
I'll have to give it another spin. That was one of those that just kind of. I gave it a spin and it just kind of got lost on me and didn't really dive back in. Some of the other new stuff. I've been listening to. I just got in the mail Squint's 2 EPs that they put out on a 12-inch. So I've been jamming some Squint. A lot of the bands that they're label mates with are pretty sick on Sunday Drive Records.
Yeah.
Forget what the one band was called. My Apple Music got all screwed up and the other day it deleted all of my recently played stuff.
Well, Slide's on Sunday Drive Records. Not
Still.
Sorry, still.
Yeah.
Still.
Listening to the new Hopes Fall remaster. Of Satellite Years, which is their. You want to talk about influences with me, at least personally.
Oh yeah.
Hopes Fall is up there.
I know they're huge on a lot of guys in the Midwest music scene because I know all the guys that were in Last Flight Home were really
big on the Hopes Fall.
Hopes Fall, yeah. They were huge.
I was lucky enough to get to see them a couple of years ago, and I went down to Furnace Fest, and it was ended up being super emotional because it was 2021, so it was coming out of the pandemic. It was the first time anybody had seen live music in so long.
Yep.
And then I'm in this just shoulder to shoulder with people watching Hopes Fall play one of my favorite songs of all time, and it was just I had to turn around and walk out to the back. I'm like, this is too much, man.
Yeah. You're wiping your ass.
Yeah.
It's one of those moments.
That Hopes Fall remix, the Gel record is awesome.
It's a banger.
Is really good. It's really good.
There's a lot of ladies killing it in hardcore right now, man.
Tell me what, man.
Yeah. Dying Wish, Scowl.
I was getting ready to say Scowl.
Schooler Brian.
there was another band that I've actually been listening to a lot called FAM. It's spelled FAIM. It's pronounced like in French though, FAM. They actually just played their last show. They're from Denver. But they kind of sound like they've got a female singer, but they kind of sound like Blacklisted with a female singer.
Damn.
So check it out, dude. It's really cool. So
New Year of the Knife Sick too.
Oh gosh, man.
I'm in like a weird, like I don't listen to a ton of hardcore, but like I'm in like a phase right now where there's a lot of new stuff out that like I'm really digging like a lot.
Terminal Sleep. They're out of Australia. They're really good. They have a chick lead singer.
I like this phase that hardcore's in right now. Like I think it's more, I think, original.
Yeah.
And kind of
there's a lot of different shades.
Than it's been in a long time, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot of different shades and subgenres that are kind of offshooting, and I see a lot of like homage being paid to like older works, even like 80s hardcore, but still yet doing something new and fresh. Like another band that I will like sing the praises of. This is kind of like off the female-led ones, but Spy is a band.
Oh yeah,
that we've had the honor of. They let us feature one of their singles on the show back when Roe v. Wade was overturned.
Yeah.
And those guys are freaking cool. That's one of my favorite records that come out this year too. But yeah, a lot of good music in hardcore in general, regardless of who's fronting the band right now.
It's in a good place right now.
Yeah. And hey, St. Louis is bearing its flag out there too. We got bands like
music is popping right now for St. Louis.
Killing it, man.
Right.
Squint, Direct Measure.
Yeah.
Man with Rope, like our boy Johnny's new band. We played with them at our little tape release party at Record Space, and I was like, dude, you guys rip. Like anytime Johnny X is in a hardcore band in St. Louis, it's probably gonna be pretty good. So yeah.
But our good friend Jason and Storm Ruler, they're doing big things. They toured with Cannibal Corpse in Europe. That was cool.
Damn. Things, yeah. Yeah, that's and I think they played with Dark Throne, and
it was crazy.
Yeah, they've had all kinds of opportunities too.
Yeah,
and they're really blowing up.
It's cool to watch a kid grow up and then get to play shows like that.
St. Louis right now for sure.
Yeah, it's going off for sure. It's going off.
In fact, I forget who the article was written by, but it was a nationally syndicated magazine. But they had just done a piece on the St. Louis music scene, how it was having a revival, and it was one of the spots to actually look at.
Yeah.
And I did share it a few days ago, I believe, on our Instagram stories.
Yeah. It's always had stuff.
Sure.
I can think of like every little era, and there's always been at least one or two bands that have kind of gone on and done like big things.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I mean, when we were coming up and kind of just getting started, like Humanoids were like kind of the hot band of the moment, and like they played Fest like the year before we played, and that kind of like dude, if they played, like, dude, we could play too, man. Like,
sure,
so there's always been that stuff going on. I think there definitely are, volume wise, there's always more music now, but the amount of like really good bands going on right now in this town is really cool to see.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Well, Brad, we really thank you for your time. It was great getting to know you a little bit better. On the way out, let's let people know where to follow you, and we'll give them a quick reminder about the show next weekend too.
Yeah, so our band Instagram is The Disappeared Music. That's the band Instagram. Mine is just B Jokerst, first initial, last name, and like I said, it's pretty much just some of my photography work. Those are really the only two means of communication. Like, we have a Facebook page, but if you message us on Facebook, like, we are not going to respond because we don't use it. So just shoot me a message on Instagram. Yeah. We do have a Bandcamp page. I think it's the Disappeared STL.bandcamp or whatever. All of our merch is up for sale on there. We've got all of our past records, vinyl, our tapes, T-shirts, like all kinds of good stuff. So, and then the show next week. So stoked about Duck Room. Saturday night, 7:30.
Well, of course, you guys listen to us, know how we do. We're going to have all the links in the episode details. So if you guys are hearing this and you guys get to a safe place, if you're driving around, wait, we got the links in the episode details.
Yep.
So
we'll have all of it for you.
All of the Disappeared stuff, and follow Brad as well. So we're going to have that linked up, and we will actually have a link for the event as well, so you can pre-buy tickets if you guys are interested in going out to the show.
Win some free T-shirts.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Yeah, that's really cool you guys are doing that.
I haven't seen a lot of that sort of the promotion going on, so that's really nice to see you guys doing that, and it's a really good idea.
Yeah.
So hats off to you guys for being a part of that.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Well, Brad, we're really excited to see what you guys are going to do whenever you guys got back together. I was really excited to see that too, and I'm just so happy to see you guys doing it because you guys are very, in my opinion, a champion of St. Louis music. Whenever somebody talks about a St. Louis band, if I was to, somebody was to ask me to grab a handful example of bands, so this is the pinnacle of St. Louis music, I think the Disappeared's in that conversation without question.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I will pass those kind words along to the rest of the guys, and I'm sure they appreciate it as well. So, we just like playing music with each other, and we care about this city, and
Thank you all for sticking around after the break. It was a big time pleasure to talk to Brad from The Disappeared.
Yeah, he was great. He's doing all kinds of great, cool stuff too. I didn't know he was a firefighter and EMT and all that. So that's cool, man. Hats off to him. Thank you for everything that he does, because that's a big job up there, especially in South City, man. It's wild. It's wild up there.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those, emergency services that people I feel like take for granted.
Absolutely.
Anytime somebody says firefighter, I think at least people of our age or whatever, probably shades of your mind go back to things like 9/11, of course.
Right.
Those were the number one heroes that were saving lives, pulling people from rubble, this and that, dealing with the effects of it present day. So, but people don't understand just the everyday stuff that they deal with, trouble of that you can have, with dealing with smoke environments and things like that, the carcinogens and terrible shit that you're breathing in, and they do more than just that. So hats off for that line of service. That's it's hard work, and but somebody's got to do it, So kudos, Brad. So guys, we're very excited about what The Disappeared has in the works going forward. Of course, check out the episode details so you guys can stay in touch with Brad and The Disappeared and everything that they got going on in particular. And let's get out to that show, support them, support West Hoffman as well.
Yeah. Oh, Wesley boy. Yeah. Former guest.
Yep, former guest.
So, they're going to be jamming together coming up, so you guys need
cool
to get
see
out.
Those guys cross-pollinating out there. We'll take all the credit in the world. It's our doings, right?
Yeah, it's the ATI magic.
Yeah. They got that ATI hot brand, right? We're giving them the rub. So, and no, we say that all in fun. These guys are way credible. Didn't need anything to do with us. It's just a joy to get to be able to talk to people like that and feature talented people in St. Louis and what they're doing and what they got going on. So
yeah, they've been jamming for a long time and they're still doing it, man. So hats off to them. That's awesome.
And I'm really excited. I know we said banger when he talked about the newer song and didn't lean into that too much, but yeah, these two new tracks they got going, I'm excited to see where The Disappeared's going, with recorded music going forward too.
Absolutely.
I think it's going to be excellent. So guys, let's talk about what we got coming up next. We got a quick turnaround by the time you hear this. The live event will probably have already happened, but you'll know what's coming next in the recording queue. So our next episode is going to be with the band Horsewhip on Iodine Recordings. We're very excited to be talking to these guys. These guys have roots all the way back into the early 90s in the Northeast hardcore and East Coast hardcore scenes and stuff. So, and of course, you guys know that Iodine connection back when we talked to Jerome's Dream. And so we're going to be probably getting a lot more Iodine artists going forward. Casey over at Iodine's the man, and we appreciate
thanks so much.
Routinely talking to us and sending us talent, and it's a great relationship that we've started to build with Casey and Iodine. So we're really excited about having that conversation. And a band we talked about today, Quicksand, they're on Iodine, and that's going to be a dream band for me if we can land them at some point.
That would be amazing, yeah.
Hopefully Casey can talk them into it to humor us for at least 40 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, hell, 10 minutes. I'll take whatever.
I'll take whatever I can get, especially if it's old Walter talking to us. Yeah, man, that would be a dream without question. And he's got, I mean, you can talk about Gorilla Biscuits and all the various things that he's done over the years, too. He's just an insane musician. Yep, we got the Horsewhip interview coming. They just released an album today, so guys, check them out on streaming platforms anywhere. Of course, Iodine's got that relationship with Death Wish, so you can, on the Death Wish Inc. store, you guys can actually purchase stuff that is Iodine's. Death Wish is a distributor for Iodine, so be sure and check out what they got going on. And after that, we're going to have Jason Hebb, friend of the show, back to the show for his second. Yeah, his second appearance on the show. He's going to be talking about what they got going on. And Jason's got a connection. I believe that Gabe, the drummer for Brad's band that disappeared, is the drummer of one of Hebb's bands, which is Grave Neighbors.
Right.
And then Gabe also records all their stuff. And then Hebb's bands practice it encapsulated and stuff too. So it's going to be a nice little connection, a synergy of talent, if you will. A little bit of crossover.
Was there some news for No Point too? Didn't they have some?
No Point. I think he's going to be describing, they have a new. No Point has a new guitarist in the band.
Okay.
But I also believe they're going to be releasing a new album, or at least that's what they were supposed to be doing. So,
there might be some exciting new stuff
about that. Yeah.
Cool.
Further, I don't know if like the guitarist change has like derailed plans for them or whatever. I doubt it did, but we'll get the official word.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking on the Twitch feed. We're going to be talking Monday night to Horsewhip. Thursday night we're going to be talking, and good old friend of the show, Brandon Stewart's going to be back in town. So we're going to be recording and banking some content with him too. On top of that, we're going to do the Pin Watch Along. We'll be dropping at some point as a special Pin, a wild ass movie that we've made allusions to and jokes and stuff on the show. That's why we have been making tons of incest jokes in particular lately. So
it's fitting for this area. So people probably didn't notice.
Yeah. So the whole Pin deal, I'm not even going to describe it. Just Google it, 1988, read all about it, based off of a book, and your world is about to just totally be ruined, and your mind's about to be blown. So,
right on.
Yeah, Pin, P-I-N. Check it out.
All right.
Yeah, so I'll leave you folks with that for this week. We appreciate your time as always. I'm Barrett, at Barry Insane on Instagram and Twitter. He is Josh_Joshua Welch on Instagram, if you want to follow him and see what he's all up to. And for this week, we are out of time. So until next time, good night and good luck.
And stay safe out there, everyone.
Sick of the time, sick of the place, sick of the atmosphere. Where love, surrender to fate, surrender to our own fear. We've run out of love. We've surrendered to our fate. We've surrendered to fear. Now there's
Hey, this is Josh from ATI Podcast. For show updates and news about the podcast, follow us on social media. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/ATI Podcast 22, on Twitter at podcast_ATI, on Instagram at the ATI Podcast, on TikTok at ATI Podcast. DMs are always welcome. Have a question for the show? You can always email us at atipodcastquestions@gmail.com. Stay safe out there.
This is Barrett from the ATI Podcast. Each week, Josh and I discuss current events, pop culture, music, TV, movies, politics, sports. Nothing is out of bounds. You can also tune in to learn about rising artists, small businesses. Whether it's music, graphic design, filmmaking, or even a brick-and-mortar mom-and-pop shop, we will be spotlighting folks and their endeavors. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Anchor, or anywhere you enjoy your podcasts. Just search ATI Podcast. We would like to thank you for your continued support, and as always, please stay safe out there.